We have a little bit of a short list today of questions from our viewers and subscribers. Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet from Woodworkweb. And you can see that we've got our big bandsaw here. We're going to be doing a little bit of a demo on bandsaw drift in just a minute. But before that, we've got a couple of questions on finishing. We have another question from Julio from Brazil. And Julio asks, when should I use shellac? And that's a little bit of a hard statement to answer. If you have a product that is porous, for example, some mahoganies are porous, some oaks are porous, you can use shellac, and especially a de-waxed shellac, as an undercoat. So you can use shellac as an undercoat so that it prevents your top coats from absorbing too much into the wood. You can also use it as it's a sealer, but you can also use it as a straight finishing product as well. So if you want your product to look sort of like an oil finish, but be a bit better protected, shellac has good protection properties. So if you're using it on furniture or those sorts of things, you can use it then. But shellac is a very good product. I use it from time to time. It's nice because you can just mix up as much as you need. And I should show you why you can mix up as much as you need, because basically you just mix this up with an alcohol base, and it's just flakes. It's dry flakes, so you just mix up as much as you need, because if you mix up too much, it goes bad after about 6 months or so. So shellac's a great product. Now, we did get some emails, which I expected, on one of the tools that we made the little library cupboard with, and that was the centering drill bit, the little centering drill bit tool, and I'll show you a close-up of that. Now, when you're using this tool, what it is, it fits in your drill bit, and it looks just like that, and there's a spring with a drill on the end of it. And when you put it into, for example, a recessed area like this hinge, it centers itself so that the drill bit goes right through the center of the hole. And it's easier to make sure that you line things up there. Now, like a lot of things, they don't work perfectly. And this one that I have, you have to be careful, it tends to stick up with wood from time to time. But that's what that detail is, and I'll show you where we use that. So we use that little centering bit, if you recall, on our library project that we just made not too long ago. And we used it, it's perfect, I use it all the time when I'm putting hinges on, because it helps you center the hinge, the hole in the hinge, so that you get the hinges to line up properly. So that's a great little tool to add. In fact, I have a set of 3 of them, and I only ever use the small one. So if you just get a number 6 that'll do for number 6 screws, that's the one that I find I use the most. Now, before we get on to the bandsaw drift that we're going to do the demo of, I do want to talk about one thing. We get a lot of emails from people wanting some details on some of our videos, and much of the questions that we get, those details are actually in the articles on Woodworkweb. So if you go to Woodworkweb and you go to the articles, you'll be able to see not all, but a lot of the detail that we get questions on. We also have a section on Woodworkweb called the forums, and one of the highlights in the forums is something got started by Gary D.E. started, for example, the Craftsman radial arm saw recall. So we have a whole section on tool announcement, alerts, and recalls. And for example, if you have a Craftsman radial arm saw, or you know of somebody who does, they have a recall on that, or an alert on that, so that they will actually send you parts to upgrade your saw. So if you know of a tool that's been recalled, or that there's parts available for to upgrade it, that's a great place that you can post those things, or you can just go there and find out if any of the tools that you have been recalled, or if there's any sort of an alert on them. So don't forget to go to Woodworkweb. There's a lot of very good information there. Now, our last question is from Ripper, and Ripper just bought himself a brand new 16-inch bandsaw. Now, any of you who have bandsaws will know that bandsaw drift is a pretty common phenomenon in the workshop. And what that means for those of you who don't have bandsaws is, unlike a table saw where you set up a fence and you push the wood and you push it through exactly parallel to the blade all the time, what happens in bandsaws is that seldom happens. Very often in bandsaws there's something called drift, and that means that when you're pushing the wood through, what happens is it tends to want to go in its own direction in order to cut a straight line. And that makes it really difficult for setting up a fence. Well, we're going to show you how to fix that. Now, what I have here is my 16-inch bandsaw, and it's all set up, ready to go. This is my shop-built fence, and it works great for ripping wood. But we're going to take it off for a minute, and we're going to show you how to set this up. Now, the first thing to do is to start off with a piece of scrap wood, make sure that it's parallel, and draw a line on it. Now, I'm actually going to use, I like to use a marking gauge, so I'm just going to use a marking gauge, but you can use a ruler, anything that will make an exact parallel line. Now, you might not be able to see this line on here very well. I'll try and mark that. Yeah, it's not working very well. But there is a line on here, and oh, you can actually see that all right. I'm going to be pushing this through the bandsaw, and you'll see when I push it through that, now this bandsaw doesn't have too much drift, but you'll see that after I push it through that it won't be exactly parallel, or it won't be exactly running true to the blade. And we're only going to push it partway through, and then we're going to stop. So let's get started on that. Now, as I pushed through, I made sure that I didn't move the board one way or the other, and it's sitting exactly the way it wants to be cut in the bandsaw. Now, I said this bandsaw runs fairly true, but if your board is at one angle or another, here's how you set up your fence. Now, the setup for this fence is like this. If you've got one of these adjustable squares here, all you need to do is put that on, doesn't matter, one way or the other, whatever works for you, and line it up so that it fits. I just moved that a tiny bit, so that it sits exactly where your board is. And now, that looks like it's pretty perpendicular, but normally that would be some sort of an angle, and that's the angle that you will then use to set your fence at. And we'll do that in a second here, but before, if you don't have one of these, you know what? You don't have to do anything fancy. A couple of square pieces of wood like this and like that, and set up there, and all you need to do is clamp that, and that will tell you the angle that your fence wants to be at. So let's set this up now. Let's put the fence back on. We'll pull that out. Now this fence of mine is a little bit high, and it's like that on purpose. So I'll move that up. So now we just set the fence, in this case, to that angle. Now, you can move the fence back and forth wherever you want, whatever the depth that you want, but it wants to be at that angle. And I'm going to set that right there and lock that fence down. Now let's go ahead and cut a piece of wood and see how parallel that is. piece of wood. We'll measure it. And it looks like it's 5/16 and just a, well, maybe a hair over 5/16. So that has cut that board exactly parallel without marking it, without any more setup. And you can use that to set this fence back and forth for any width that you want. And that will work on this blade to keep moving that back and forth. You'll have to check it from time to time, but that will work on setting up that fence and cutting your wood without having to struggle with your fence and making sure that your fence and your board are fighting one another. So this concludes our video on questions and answers from video subscribers and members from Woodworkweb. Don't forget to go to Woodworkweb because a lot of the answers that you're looking for are there. And for those of you who are more professional and have been doing this for quite a while, I know there's a lot of you following us, you can help out the people that are new, because we've got a lot of newbies that watch this video. So that's the great thing about woodworking, is that there's no competition. It's just a bunch of people sharing ideas and plans and knowledge. So don't forget, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. I'm Colin Canet for Woodworkweb. Don't forget to subscribe.